Thank you for having me today. My name is Evan Jones. I'm the owner of Stitch Media. We are a company that marries traditional and interactive media together. And today, what I'm going to be presenting about is I want you to visualize yourself in a specific situation, which is that you have made the decision that you want to be developing, thinking about, concepting a mobile app of your own, and you realize that this is very uncharted territory for you, and so you might ask me how I would do this sort of thing. And what I'm going to do is walk you through how I do this and hold that hand, because that's what I do in my day job, is hold that hand and say, here is the process that we would take to start developing a mobile app. So, the very first thing that we do is actually don't talk about mobile at all, which is to figure out why anybody does anything. Concepting needs to have something to drive it. It's going to be a long experience and an effort that needs a motivation behind it. And if you don't know why, you really haven't begun the journey on the right step. And so there are a lot of different things that are sort of sub-questions that come down for this. Like, for instance, there are some projects that we work on where we say, look, are you looking to reach as many people as possible, or are you looking to reach a few people in a much more sustained way? There are obviously questions of profit, and all of those should create measures of success for you. Now, I've given a few examples of some quantitative measures of success. Some are qualitative at the bottom, like positive reviews. And the idea is you need to, very early on, decide, like the signposting that was talked about earlier, what success is supposed to look like, because you're either achieving the goals or you're not achieving the goals. That's that. Then, this is going to be a bit of a why, who, what, where kind of a presentation. And the next step is obviously who. If you are the target market for your mobile app, that is a huge shortcut, because you can ask yourself a lot more intimate questions than you might ask another target audience. But you do need to be explicit about it, because a lot of people they can't quite put their finger on exactly what it is that they're trying to achieve. The way I try to do it is by profiling myself if I'm the target user, and I do that on paper. I start to write out, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it, this is my routine, this is what's going on in my head. I start to do that kind of in user experience training. You'll ask people to talk out loud while they're using a product. It's sort of the idea of doing that for your life. Talking this internal dialogue of what is it that's going on, and the thing that you're looking for are those pain points, the pain points that are going to motivate you to change your behavior. So when you see this mobile app, you'll say, that addresses a need that I have, and because I'm the target audience, it's perfect. If you're not the target audience, then you need to stop thinking that you know them, and you need to find them. You need to start having a really strong relationship with understanding what they're doing, how they're doing it, so that you can start to hear that internal monologue that they are giving. And so a really fascinating story about this for me is John Lasseter, who ended up creating incredible films like Breakfast Club. Actually, after his death, a few people came forward and said that they were actually pen pals of his for his entire career, and informed many of the films that he did, because he was writing daily between preteen audience that he got to know on a very personal level, and use that to inform his target audience. So please don't put things in their heads. Please think about being able to understand them so that you can role play with them. The other thing that mobile app development takes on, and there was a question earlier today, which was, why is a laptop different than an iPad? They're both screens, and they're both roughly the same size. And this is something that I talk about a lot, which is the affordances of anything. Every different media has its own affordances. Print has a really incredible shelf life and battery power. The mobile devices themselves have their own things. For instance, it's the first time that we have a piece of technology that's a one-to-one relationship with the end user. Computers are often family, library based. There's other places that they're communal devices, whereas mobile has a real personal connection. The behavior of people often jumping, because it's omnipresent, they're often using it in front of a television, the second screen idea. The touch screen and multi-touch have a completely different interface than all other mouse, keyboard, kiosk-based things. Obviously, the extra layer of location that we heard about earlier, the always-on and the ability to be notified, persistent connection, and then taking that into account with the bandwidth discussion that happened earlier, and the idea that streaming video might be a pretty expensive proposition for a 3G user, but the kind of small pings of data at a constant rate are a really interesting addition. Being respectful of battery life, and then also just the emergent property of responsive design. I think that responsive design has come out of this mobile sphere of frustration of people saying, well, we've got so many different devices with so many different ratios, pixel counts, everything in here. Instead of us thinking in absolutes, we need to start thinking in relatives, and that starts to inform design. So all of this is just context that you need to carry with you as you're imagining a mobile app, because it's too often that we project what we have in our previous worldview and say, you know, the rules of television apply in mobile. Well, they don't, because mobile is a different experience, and this is a short list trying to cover some of those differences. Then I want you to take out a piece of paper, and I want you to think about not taking on everything at once. The idea being that this is a user flow diagram. It's a very casual thing, but what it's trying to do is to profile how is somebody going to use your product, what are the kind of features that would naturally stem from that. If I am in the search section, what are the jumping off points that I would want? And so you think about each step of the process, and then iteratively you get yourself into some other forms. You can see now we can refine that user flow diagram, and we can get into how that might create an interface and what values an interface give to different elements in the user flow. And then you go and you iterate again and you say, okay, well now we're looking a little fancier, and by the time we get down to even a stage beyond this, we are pretty much doing the heaviest lifting of the concept phase before we turn on a development tool. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't also do your homework while you're working on these things. One thing that I am often talking about in the entertainment field is how the major successes in mobile so far have been the tools and the platforms and the games, and you can see some familiar examples there. That is an interesting issue, which is that the content-based business model versus the technology-based business model are often conflated in this innovation world. And it's important to note that when you're talking about the breakaway successes of something like Facebook is a very different business model entirely than saying, you know, I'm going to write web comics and I'm going to publish them on my mobile app. That's a different mentality than something that's a tool that others will use. It's also, I think, a given that you should probably look to see if other apps are doing what you are already offering to do. And that goes one level deeper for me, which is that there are other ways to achieve or you know, navigate that pain point that may not be mobile based. You may think, okay, I'm solving this problem for people, and you're looking and you say, well, there's nothing on the iOS App Store that does that. But actually, what you don't realize is that there's another product that does do that, and you're just not, you haven't widened your scope. That also sort of is the inverse, which is that there has been a sort of now a 5-year history probably of people creating great tools that then get subsumed into larger tools as features. The idea of an Instagram getting swallowed up by a Facebook, and the idea of, you know, Apple creating a lot of features in their next operating system that actually sort of negate tools that people were building.